Hey, quick little book review for you. Today I read Paper Pencil Life, number 3 by Summer Pierre. And this is a comic. It's pretty short. I would estimate maybe 50 pages. Here's a little preview of sort of what the pages look like. And I'm actually I haven't heard of this author before. But it was recommended that I read this book as part of my comics course. Okay, so I did a understanding comics course in university, and the professor told us, we had to buy all these comics. And then, in a shocking turn of events, it turns out that a lot of the comics we bought, we didn't actually have to read. And man, it was like $200 worth of comics, right? It was pretty serious. The same amount you'd have to pay for like one of those fancy physics textbooks, except the difference is you've got like 30 different comics, right? And for whatever reason, we just never got to it in the class. And I was a little bit spiteful about that. I was like, oh, damn it, this guy made me buy this thing, and then we didn't even read it. And it's sort of stuck on my bookshelf as the number of comics I own has slowly dwindled down. But this one has stuck around because I knew at some point I wanted to get around to it. And I finally sat down on the beach today with my friend Peter, and I read this comic. And it's interesting. So this is, if I understand correctly now, this is number 3 of an ongoing series. It would appear that this is sort of diary comics is the way that it's set on the title here, and I think that's a good description. The idea basically is that this author, this woman Summer, has a diary, and so instead of writing a typical prose diary, instead she draws little comics to talk about her day and what she's going through and what she's living. And so each one of these entries has a date associated with it. So the comic picks up on 2014, or 2013 rather, when her baby is just being born, I think. And it sort of jumps around a little bit, but it ends somewhere around 2015, I guess. So over the course of 2 years, we sort of see her grow as a mother, trusting in her child a little bit more, also dealing with some serious anxiety issues. And it sort of has the feel of a diary if you had to write in it every day. Sort of like, everyday life, hanging out, thinking about things that people think about as they grow old and worrying about being a parent. I would say that the comic felt pretty bland. The None of the pictures, the little vignettes, none of the graphics were particularly striking. And pretty much always when there was a text bubble, a speech bubble, some sort of some diegetic dialogue, it was sort of throwaway. Pretty much always, and I saw myself nearing the end as we were ready to leave. We had to go do something else. I was just sort of reading the captions of the different comic panels, and I realized that the captions were really all you needed to get the story. Not really any plot was being delivered in the dialogue, and I really didn't like that, because it sort of like the dialogue really wasn't serving, I think, to develop characterization. It wasn't really serving for the plot. It just sort of felt like extra. It just sort of felt like she wanted to say this thing with a panel, so she drew a picture that was somewhat related and then gave people text bubbles, to say something somewhat related. And I think the other place where this fails, and I guess it's part of some much longer, I went on her website, and it's now, apparently she's got like version 7 now. So she's been doing this for quite some time. But there just isn't a general like narrative through line that I was able to really hook onto. I guess there's something here about growing and trusting your kids as a parent, but there was nothing really that I could sink my teeth into that I felt was really a page turner. This definitely felt like a sort of airplane novel, or something that I don't know. There was no real desire for me to turn the pages, and I usually think that's not a good sign. Yeah. I thought the images were, okay. I understand in her new issues, she's now brought the series to color, and if I take a peek, I've got my screen here. I was peeking around on her website, which is linked here, and her new website, like this spread, I had to say, is way more engaging than anything I saw in this one. So maybe she's growing as an artist and a composer of the page, or maybe she was just focusing on that a little bit more. But I have to say, her new work it appears much more striking than this. And so I'd say if you're interested in some of the things I've talked about, I would say probably skip this one and just jump into whatever she's doing now, because I'm really not very happy with this work. I certainly wouldn't recommend it to somebody else. And I would say at this point in time, it's probably going to be below average for me, probably 1.5 to 2 stars. With that being said, I think there is a little bit of charm in this work, and I think that's what probably brings it to 2 stars rather than 1. And it's that, it does feel very personal. It feels, I felt like the order itself was bespoke. If I recall correctly, this was mailed to me. You can only buy it on her Etsy, so you're buying it directly from her, and there's something magic there, I think, with, there's no publisher involved. You're just buying it from this woman who's making comics somewhere out in the world. And I believe it included a personalized note for me as well. And it said something like, "Hello, Matthew. Sorry your order was a little late. I just needed to print new copies, and I got this hot off the presses," or something like that. Which I thought was like, I think there's something really special about that. And it does feel like you're, like the person is a bit of the experience. And it's hard to get away from that because it is autobiographical in nature too. So I think there's a bit of a risk there, right? Where it almost seems like you're judging the person in some sense. Because I'm really interested in what this artist is doing now, and I'm a little bit fascinated about that. But I have to say the work itself doesn't stand very much alone, and again I just can't bring myself to recommend this to anyone. I wouldn't say it was very compelling. So that is a quick review of Paper Pencil Life. If you followed this series and maybe you're on like the 7th or the 6th issue, where she's introduced color, I'd love to hear where that's taken the piece. And also what she's doing narratively. There is a bit of a difficulty here, I think, when you are working off a diary. How do you bring it together? How do you tell the story of someone's life when they're still alive? And so there's so many different directions they could be going. How do you find plot lines there among, what could be a very scattered set of reflections? I'm in the process of writing something that's memoir-like, and I'm struggling with some of those questions as well. So I think I've also been just sort of reflecting on this as a fellow artist, and I think I've gotten a little bit more out of it in that respect than as a reader for entertainment. But those are just some of the thoughts that are circling my mind when I consider this work. So that is Paper Pencil Life. If you read it, I'd love to know what you think, and thanks for hanging out. Bye.